The night felt calm outside the old studio building, but inside a storm of emotions was about to rise. The audience filled every seat, and a soft murmur of excitement moved through the room as the event lights warmed the stage. No one knew that something rare and deeply human was about to happen. They had come to watch a normal talk session, but within a few moments, they would witness a moment that would stay in their hearts for a long time. The air carried a quiet tension, and the stage team whispered to each other as they prepared for the entry of two people who had worked together for years and respected each other even more deeply than anyone understood. Keanu Reeves stood behind the curtain with his hands folded gently. He was calm as always, but there was a softness in his eyes that showed he had been thinking about something important. He took a slow breath and tried to clear his mind. He had planned to speak a little about life and kindness, but he had no idea that something else was waiting for him on that stage. Something that would touch him in a way he did not expect. Sandra Bullock stood a few steps away from him, holding the microphone lightly in her hands. She looked nervous in a quiet way. Her eyes moved across the audience through the gap in the curtain. She had spoken in front of crowds many times in her life, but today felt different. She kept thinking about the long journey she and Keanu had shared. She remembered the early days when they worked together and how his presence made everything feel calmer. She remembered every time he helped someone quietly without asking for attention. She remembered his kindness during days when she felt tired or worried. Every memory built a feeling inside her chest that she could no longer keep hidden. Today she felt a strong need to speak the truth she had held inside for so long. She did not plan it fully. She only felt that this was the right moment and the right place. The host gave a signal and soft music filled the hall. The curtain opened slowly. The audience cheered as both of them walked out together. The lights brightened and the stage felt warm. Sandra smiled politely, but her heartbeat was heavy. Keanu smiled gently at everyone and lowered his head a little, as he always did when people clapped for him. Both of them sat on two chairs placed close to each other, and the host began asking simple questions about their early work. The first few minutes felt normal. They laughed softly, remembering old stories. The atmosphere felt light, but Sandra could feel her chest tightening with every passing second. Something important was pushing from inside her. She tried to ignore it, but her eyes kept moving toward Keanu. She kept seeing the person he had always been. Patient, humble, steady, someone who carried light even on days he felt broken. The host turned to Sandra with another playful question, but Sandra did not answer immediately. She took a slow breath and looked at Keanu again. Her eyes softened and her voice trembled slightly. The audience sensed the change instantly. The room grew quiet, as if everyone felt something meaningful was coming. The host stepped back a little, giving her space. Sandra leaned forward and placed the microphone closer to her lips. She paused for a moment, trying to gather her courage. The silence wrapped around her. Then she spoke in a low, steady tone that carried years of emotion. She said that she once believed people came into her life for reasons she could not always understand. Sometimes it was to teach her patience. Sometimes it was to test her strength. But sometimes it was to remind her what true kindness looked like. The audience leaned in. Keanu looked at her with gentle confusion. Then Sandra continued. She said that in her life she had met many people, but very few had changed her view of the world. Very few had shown her what real humility meant. Very few had lifted others without asking for anything. She looked at Keanu, and her voice grew softer. She said that for her, Keanu was one of those rare people. The room froze. Keanu blinked slowly, not knowing what to say. Sandra's eyes filled with rising emotion, but she did not look away. She said that he had no idea how many times he had helped her without even noticing, how many times he had brought calm into a room, how many times he had reminded her to breathe and stay grounded. She said that she would never forget those moments. Then her voice shook as she said something that made the entire hall fall silent. She said softly that to her, Keanu was a blessing. The words echoed through the hall like a soft wave of warmth. Every single person felt the depth behind them. Some gasped quietly, some smiled, some felt tears rise without warning. Even Keanu froze as his eyes widened gently. He lowered his head and took a deep breath, trying to hide the emotion that rushed inside him. He was not used to such open appreciation. He always believed that kindness should be silent. He never wanted praise. But hearing these words from someone he cared about touched him in a way he had not felt in a long time. Sandra looked down after speaking, as if releasing a weight she had carried for years. She felt exposed, but also relieved. She had spoken from her heart. She had shared her truth, but she did not know what reaction would come next. The room stayed quiet for several seconds while everyone waited for Keanu to respond. The moment felt fragile, like a glass that could break with one wrong touch. But instead of breaking, something beautiful was about to begin. The hall remained silent as the weight of Sandra's words settled. It was the kind of silence that carried respect instead of emptiness. The audience felt the sincerity in her voice, and even the lights above the stage seemed softer now. Keanu lifted his head slowly. His eyes looked warm yet uncertain as he tried to understand how to respond. He had never been the kind of person who accepted praise easily. He always believed that simple acts of kindness did not need attention. But in this moment, he realized something deeper. Her words were not praise. They were a reflection of years of trust and quiet support that had shaped both of their lives. Keanu moved slightly in his chair as he tried to gather his thoughts. His hands touched each other gently, and he took a slow breath before speaking. He looked at Sandra with calm eyes and said that he never knew she felt this way. He said he was grateful and honored, and that her words meant more to him than she could imagine. His voice was steady, but a soft tremor hid underneath. The audience felt his honesty and leaned forward as if not wanting to miss a single breath. Sandra looked at him again and felt her heart steady. For the first time in a long while, she felt that the truth she had been holding inside was finally released. The host watched them closely, sensing the emotional shift that neither of them had planned. Instead of interrupting, he stepped back and allowed the moment to unfold on its own. Sometimes real stories form without scripts, and this was one of those moments. Keanu then turned slightly toward the audience and spoke about something he rarely discussed. He said that life had taught him many things. He said he had met people who smiled outside but carried quiet storms inside. He had seen people pretend to be strong while breaking alone, and he had learned that even small acts of kindness could change someone's day. He shared that he had always tried to help people quietly because he believed that true kindness did not need noise. The audience listened with soft hearts, as his words connected deeply with everything Sandra had expressed earlier. But then something unexpected happened. Sandra leaned back in her chair and gave a small, shaky laugh, the kind that comes from holding too much emotion for too long. She wiped a tear quickly and said that there was something she had never told Keanu. She had planned to keep it to herself forever, but now it felt like the right time. The audience shifted carefully in their seats, sensing something important was coming. Keanu watched her with careful attention, his eyes filled with concern and gentle curiosity. Sandra explained that many years ago, during one of their early projects, she had been struggling silently. She felt overwhelmed by pressure and unsure if she was good enough. She said she would go home each night and wonder if she belonged in that world. She felt lost even while smiling in front of the camera. She shared that nobody knew about it, not even her closest friends. She kept everything hidden because she did not want to appear weak. But then she explained something that made Keanu sit straighter. She told the audience that one day after a long shoot, she was sitting alone behind the set, feeling exhausted and close to tears. She thought no one noticed her slipping away. She said she felt invisible, forgotten. But then Keanu walked over without saying anything and simply sat down beside her. He did not ask what was wrong. He did not try to fix anything. He only stayed there quietly, offering calm through his presence. She said that moment saved her in a way he never understood. Keanu's eyes slowly widened. He remembered sitting beside her that day, but he had no idea how much it meant to her. He thought it was nothing, just a small moment. He believed she needed space, so he sat without speaking. He never imagined that his silence had protected her from breaking. He looked at her now, realizing how easily people can help someone without ever knowing it. The audience felt a wave of emotion move across the room. People held their breath. Some blinked away tears. There was something powerful about hearing how simple presence could become a lifeline for someone who felt alone. It reminded everyone in the room that kindness did not always require big gestures. Sometimes it was just being there without expecting anything. Sandra continued. She said that from that day she began to see Keanu differently, not just as a co-star or friend, but as someone who carried a quiet strength that touched people deeply. She said she learned from him without him knowing. She learned to speak with more patience. She learned to listen with more heart. She learned that gentle people were often the strongest. She said she never forgot it because it changed her. Keanu felt his chest tighten as he listened. He shifted his gaze downward for a moment, trying to steady his emotions. He clasped his hands together and inhaled slowly. When he looked back up at her, his expression carried gratitude and a hint of vulnerability. He thanked her softly for trusting him enough to share something so personal. He said that hearing this now made him realize that every small act mattered, even the ones people forget. The host finally stepped forward, sensing that this moment needed a bridge. He asked Sandra what made her choose this event to share such deep feelings. Sandra answered honestly. She said she had watched Keanu for years, giving kindness to people everywhere he went. She said she had seen him help strangers quietly and support friends without shouting about it. She said she felt that he deserved to hear what he meant to her before time carried them further into life. Her voice shook again, but she kept going. She said she wanted him to know that he had been a blessing not just to her, but to many people who crossed his path. Her heart demanded that she say it while he was still beside her. Keanu looked at her with soft eyes. He took a small breath and said that hearing this made him realize something he rarely admitted. He said that there were days he doubted himself too. Days he felt tired. Days he felt empty. But knowing that he had made even one person feel supported gave him new strength. The audience felt the honesty in his words. It was rare to hear such openness between two people who had carried their own storms quietly for so long. Then as the room settled again, something else happened that surprised everyone. The lights dimmed slightly as the stage team prepared for the next segment, but Sandra placed her hand on Keanu's arm, stopping him from standing up. She looked at him with an expression that made the entire room hold its breath. She said there was still one more thing she wanted to reveal, something she had kept hidden because she feared it might change the way he saw himself. The moment stretched quietly. Keanu waited, the room waited. And Sandra took a slow, deep breath, preparing herself to continue. The hall became completely still as everyone waited for Sandra to continue. The lights rested softly on both of them, creating a warm glow that made the moment feel even more delicate. Sandra held the microphone gently, but her fingers trembled slightly. She took another breath and looked at Keanu with an expression filled with honesty and quiet fear. She knew what she was about to say would open a door she had kept closed for years, yet she also felt it was the right moment. Life rarely gives a second chance to say what truly matters. Keanu leaned a little closer, noticing the shaking in her hands. He did not speak. He only offered the same calm presence that had once saved her in silence. His eyes were steady and patient. He wanted her to take her time. He wanted her to feel safe. The audience watched them with soft hearts, sensing the depth of what was coming. Sandra's voice broke slightly as she began to speak. She said that many years after that difficult day on set, she had gone through another silent struggle. The world saw her smiling in interviews and walking proudly on red carpets, but inside she felt a weight she could not explain. She said she doubted herself again. She questioned her worth. She felt she was falling behind in life while others kept moving forward with confidence. She said she kept working and kept smiling, but something deep inside her felt tired. She paused and wiped a tear from her cheek. Keanu watched her quietly, his eyes softening with every word she shared. He did not move. He let her speak because he understood that sometimes people needed to release things they had carried too long. Then Sandra said something that made the entire room hold its breath. She said that during that difficult period, she would often think about the small things Keanu had said or done in the past. She remembered how he always treated people with respect no matter who they were. She remembered how he listened when others rushed. She remembered how he stayed gentle even when life tested him. She said those memories helped her walk through her own struggles because they reminded her of how strength could look quiet and simple. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He never knew that she had gone through such a heavy time. He never knew that his small actions had followed her through life and kept her grounded. He looked at her with an expression that carried both surprise and deep emotion. But Sandra was not finished. She said that during that time she made a mistake. She said she pushed people away because she did not want anyone to see her vulnerable. She said she closed doors even when she needed help. She said she tried to handle everything alone because she did not want to be a burden to anyone. The room felt heavy with empathy. Many people understood what it felt like to fight silent battles alone. Sandra continued. She said that one day a small article appeared online about a quiet act of kindness Keanu had done for someone. It was not a big story, but it showed how he helped a stranger without asking for anything. She said she remembered reading it and feeling something shift inside her. She felt hope. She felt reminded of the good that still existed in the world. She realized that she did not have to carry her struggles alone. She realized that she needed to reach out again. She said that simple moment helped her breathe. Keanu blinked slowly, trying to absorb her words. He looked down for a second and brushed his fingers nervously across his palm. He looked overwhelmed, but in a gentle way. He had no idea that something so small could have such an impact. The host stepped forward slowly, but Sandra raised her hand, signaling that she still had more to say. She looked at Keanu again, and her voice softened. She said that during that time she wished she had told him how much his kindness had shaped her. She wished she had thanked him. She wished she had not waited so long. Her voice cracked as she said she feared she had missed the chance forever. Keanu reached out slowly and touched her hand. It was a small gesture, but it carried warmth and reassurance. He said softly that she had not missed anything. He said her words meant more to him now than ever. The room filled with gentle emotion as their hands stayed close. People could feel the connection that had grown through years of quiet support and unspoken gratitude. But then something surprising happened. Sandra took another breath and said that there was one more truth she had carried, something deeper than everything she had said before, something she feared would be misunderstood. She hesitated as if choosing between courage and silence. Her eyes lowered for a moment as she tried to steady her heart. Keanu watched her closely, sensing the weight of her next words. The audience leaned in again, waiting in almost complete silence. It felt like the whole building was holding its breath. Sandra then revealed something she had never shared with anyone. She said that during her hardest days she had once written a letter she never sent, a letter addressed to Keanu. In that letter she had written everything she felt. She wrote that his kindness saved her more times than he realized. She wrote that his presence made her believe in gentle strength. She wrote that his way of walking through life made her feel hope again. She wrote that she saw him not only as a friend, but as someone whose spirit guided her during her worst moments. She wrote that he was a blessing in her life long before she said it out loud. The entire room froze. Keanu stared at her with wide, soft eyes as if someone had gently opened a door inside him. He whispered a quiet question. He asked her why she never sent it. Sandra looked at him with a sad smile. She said she was scared. She feared it would sound too emotional. She feared it might change their friendship. She feared she would burden him with her feelings, so she kept the letter hidden in a drawer and never spoke about it to anyone. Keanu took a slow breath and his throat tightened. He told her gently that she should never fear sharing her truth with him. He said he valued her more than she realized. He said that if he had known she was struggling, he would have stood by her without hesitation. He looked at her with sincerity that filled the room with warmth. The audience felt the gravity of the moment. It was rare to see two people speak with such raw honesty and respect. Their bond felt stronger than ever. But then Sandra whispered something that shifted the atmosphere again. She said that she did not come here today just to share memories. She came here because life felt too short to hide gratitude. She said she had brought something with her, something she had kept hidden for years. She slowly reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope, the same envelope that held the letter she wrote during her hardest days. The hall filled with quiet surprise. The host stepped back again. The lights stayed warm. Keanu looked at the envelope with a mix of confusion and emotion. Sandra placed the envelope gently on the table between them. She said that inside this envelope was the letter she once wrote and never sent. And today she wanted him to finally read it. The envelope resting between them felt heavier than paper. It carried years of silence and memories that had lived quietly in Sandra's heart. The audience waited without moving even an inch. It was as if the entire hall understood that something rare and deeply human was unfolding before their eyes. Sandra kept her gaze on the envelope while Keanu looked at it with slow, careful breaths. He could feel the weight of everything she had just revealed, but he also sensed there was still something she had not said yet. Something hidden behind her trembling voice. Keanu reached forward gently but then stopped. He looked at Sandra with calm eyes and asked her softly if she was sure. He told her that he did not want her to feel pressured. He told her he would only read it if she truly wanted him to. Sandra nodded slowly. Her voice shook as she said that she had waited too long already. She said that she feared losing the chance to let him know how much he had meant to her during her darkest days. She said she wanted him to read it now because she finally felt brave enough to let the truth breathe. Keanu picked up the envelope with both hands as if holding something fragile. He took a deep breath and carefully unfolded it. The hall was so quiet that even the sound of the paper opening felt loud. Sandra looked down at her lap, unable to face the moment directly. She felt exposed in a way she had never felt before, yet something inside her also felt relieved. The truth was no longer locked away. It was finally given space to be seen. Keanu began reading the letter in silence. His eyes moved slowly across the words she had written years ago. The audience could not hear the letter, but they watched his expression change with every line. At first, his eyes softened with gentle surprise. Then they grew emotional as the words touched him deeply. Then they glistened slightly as he reached a part that clearly held the most pain. The letter spoke about her loneliness. It spoke about her silent fears. It spoke about the nights she wanted to quit. And it spoke about how his quiet kindness had guided her. He had no idea how much of an impact he had made. Sandra's hands shook as she waited for his reaction. She felt her heart pounding against her chest as she wondered if she had done the right thing. She wondered if sharing this letter would change their friendship or make things uncomfortable. But she also knew that honesty sometimes required courage even when it felt terrifying. When Keanu finished reading the letter, he closed it gently and looked at her with an expression no one had ever seen on him before. His eyes were filled with warmth and emotion, but also something protective. He placed the letter on the table and reached out to hold her hand. His voice was soft when he spoke. He said that he wished she had told him sooner, not because he wanted recognition, but because he wished he could have been there for her during her pain. Sandra felt tears rise again. She whispered that she did not want to pull him into her struggles. She thought he had enough to carry already. Keanu shook his head gently and told her that friendship is not about carrying alone. He said that she had been there for him in ways she did not even realize. He said that even her smile on difficult days helped him find strength when he felt tired. The audience listened, quietly touched by the deep connection between them. But then something happened that surprised everyone. Keanu asked the host if he could share something personal too. The host nodded and stepped back. Keanu leaned forward slightly and looked at the audience with calm eyes. He said that he had gone through his own storms in life, storms he rarely spoke about, storms that changed the way he saw the world. He said there were days when he doubted himself, days when he felt invisible, days when he questioned if he mattered. The hall listened closely as his voice carried honesty that felt rare. Keanu continued. He said that during one of those difficult periods he had returned to a project with Sandra after a long break. He remembered feeling disconnected from everything. His confidence felt low. His mind felt scattered. But he said that Sandra had a way of grounding him without trying. He said her laughter during scenes lifted him. He said her kindness behind the camera reminded him that the world still had gentle light. He said she never knew this because he never said it out loud. Sandra looked at him with wide, emotional eyes. She whispered his name gently, but he continued speaking. He said that just as she believed he had been a blessing in her life, he believed she had been a blessing in his. The audience felt a wave of emotion wash through the room. Some people quietly wiped tears from their eyes. Sandra placed her hand on her chest, trying to steady herself. She said she never knew he felt that way. She said she always believed he was the strong one, the calm one, the one who never faltered. Keanu smiled softly and shook his head. He said that even the strongest people break sometimes. He said that what helps them rise again are the small moments of kindness that others give without knowing. He said she had given him those moments more times than she realized. Their hands remained gently connected. The stage lights made their expressions glow softly. The room felt warm with sincerity. But then Sandra took a slow breath and revealed something that shifted the entire atmosphere once again. She said that the reason she brought the letter today was not only to thank him. She said she brought it because something happened recently. Something that reminded her that life could change suddenly without warning. The audience leaned in again, sensing another twist. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly with growing concern. Sandra looked at him with trembling lips. She said she had received a message a few weeks ago about someone they both used to know, someone they admired, someone who had always encouraged them. The message said that this person had fallen seriously ill. There was a long pause. Sandra swallowed hard before continuing. She said that hearing that news made her realize how fragile time was, how quickly life could shift, how easily words left unsaid could turn into regrets. Keanu's expression changed instantly. He leaned closer and asked softly who it was. Sandra hesitated, then whispered the name. The audience recognized it as someone who had worked with both of them in their early years, someone who had made a quiet but meaningful impact on them. Keanu lowered his head and breathed in deeply. Sadness touched his face. He understood why Sandra felt such urgency to express everything she had kept inside. He understood the fear of losing the chance to say what mattered. Sandra squeezed his hand gently. She said she did not want to wait anymore. She said she wanted him to know everything while they were still here, still alive, still sharing moments together. Her voice trembled, but it carried strength. Keanu lifted his head again and looked into her eyes. He told her that he was grateful she spoke the truth. He told her that her honesty made him understand something important. He told her that he too had words he never said because he thought it was better to stay silent. The room fell silent again. The air felt full of suspense. Keanu took a slow breath, and then he said quietly that he had been keeping something inside for years. Something he never told her. Something that might change everything. The moment Keanu said he had been holding something inside for years, the entire hall seemed to stop breathing. Even the soft hum of the lights felt silent. Sandra's eyes widened gently. She had never seen this expression on him before. His calm face carried a quiet weight, as if he was finally ready to open a part of himself he had kept hidden for a long time. The audience watched with full attention, sensing that something deeply personal was about to rise to the surface. Keanu lowered his gaze for a moment, as if choosing his words with extreme care. His hands rested gently on his knees, and he inhaled slowly. He looked up again and met Sandra's eyes with a steady but emotional expression. He told her softly that there were times when he felt lost in the middle of his own life. Times when he smiled for the world, but felt empty when he returned home. Times when he felt unsure of who he was becoming. He said he carried many quiet storms that people never saw because he did not want to burden anyone. Sandra listened with full attention. Every word he spoke felt like a piece of a puzzle she never knew existed. She had always believed he carried incredible strength, but now she understood that his silence often hid his struggles. She rested her hand on his, gently encouraging him to continue. Keanu took another slow breath. Then he revealed something that surprised everyone. He said that during one of the hardest years of his life, something unexpected kept him steady. Something small but powerful. He said it was Sandra's presence. Even when they were not working together, her words, her laughter, her simple kindness kept him grounded. He said there were days when he would replay old conversations in his mind because they reminded him of peace. He said she helped him more than she realized. Sandra's eyes filled with tears instantly. She had no idea that something as simple as her presence could have brought him comfort. She covered her mouth, gently trying not to cry out loud. The audience felt the intensity of his honesty. Many people blinked away tears, unable to hold the emotion rising inside them. But Keanu was not done. He told Sandra that the truth he had been holding inside was not only about comfort or support. It was something he feared to admit because he did not want to make things complicated. He did not want to create distance between them. He did not want to change the gentle balance they shared. He paused and lowered his head again, struggling with the emotion in his voice. Sandra placed her other hand on his arm and whispered softly that he could tell her anything. She told him she would listen without fear. She told him she trusted him. Keanu lifted his head slowly. His eyes glistened as he looked at her with deep warmth. Then he revealed the truth he had kept hidden. He said that for years he had admired her more than he ever admitted. He said he admired her strength even when she doubted herself. He admired her kindness even when people misunderstood her. He admired her resilience even when she was tired. He said her presence felt like light during times when his world felt dim. The room felt like it stopped moving. Sandra froze, not in shock but in deep emotional softness. She felt her heart beating heavily inside her chest. Her eyes filled even more, but she did not look away. She whispered his name, gently, unable to say anything else at first. He continued. He said that he never told her because he did not want her to feel pressure. He said he feared she would think he expected something from her. He said he wanted their friendship to stay strong and unbroken. So he kept his feelings quiet. He carried them alone. He said he believed silence would protect the bond they had. Sandra's tears finally fell, not out of sadness but out of deep connection. She leaned closer and whispered that she never expected this. She said she always thought he saw her only as a friend. She said she never imagined he carried such feelings in his quiet heart. Keanu smiled softly, but it was a sad smile. He said he accepted his feelings as something beautiful, but not something he expected anything from. He said he only wanted her to know because he believed she deserved honesty. He said he wanted to live without the regret of hiding something that had shaped him for years. The audience felt the weight of every word. The truth between them was unfolding gently and respectfully. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt heavy. It felt human and real. Sandra reached forward and held both of his hands tightly. She shook her head softly as tears fell down her cheeks. She told him that he had never complicated anything for her. She said that if she had known earlier, she would have handled it with care. She said she wanted to respond with honesty too. The room grew even quieter as Sandra prepared to speak. She took a slow, shaky breath and looked directly into his eyes. Then she revealed something that shocked even Keanu. She said that she too had held something inside for years, something she never said because she feared it would change everything. She said that every time he supported her, she felt something deeper pulling at her heart. She said she never acted on it because she valued his presence too much to risk losing it. She said she kept her feelings locked away just like he did. Keanu's eyes widened gently as he listened. A small breath escaped him. He had never expected this. The audience felt the emotional electricity between them. Sandra continued quietly. She said that she respected him too much to confuse kindness with affection. She said she feared misunderstanding her own emotions. She said she constantly reminded herself to stay grounded because she did not want their bond to shatter under pressure. She said she built walls not because she wanted distance, but because she wanted to protect what they had. Keanu looked overwhelmed. The truth they both hid for years now lay softly between them. Neither of them pushed the moment into something dramatic. Instead, they allowed the emotion to flow gently like a quiet tide. The host stood silently in the background, watching a story unfold that no script could ever create. Sandra wiped her tears and whispered that even though they both felt something deeper once their connection had grown into something stronger than romance, something that felt like a life bond, something built on respect, patience, and trust. She said she believed that what they shared now was even more precious than anything she imagined in the past. Keanu nodded slowly. He understood immediately. He felt the same. What they shared had grown beyond simple categories. It was not friendship alone. It was not affection alone. It was something that carried a deeper meaning, a quiet connection that stayed strong through years of silence and unspoken truth. But then, just as the atmosphere began to calm, something unexpected happened. A staff member rushed toward the stage quietly and whispered something into the host's ear. The host's expression changed instantly. The audience sensed a shift. Keanu and Sandra looked up at the host with concern. The host took a deep breath and turned to them with a serious expression. He said that the person they both cared about, the one who had fallen seriously ill, had just been rushed into emergency care. The moment shattered into sudden urgency. The words from the host struck the room like a sudden cold wind. The audience gasped softly. Sandra's breath caught in her throat, and Keanu's expression changed instantly from emotional tenderness to deep concern. They both stood up from their chairs at the same time without needing to speak. It was as if their hearts reacted before their minds could catch up. The hall fell into complete silence as the weight of the news settled over the moment that had been warm just seconds ago. Sandra pressed her hand against her chest, trying to steady her breathing. She looked at Keanu with worried eyes. The person they cared about, the one who had mentored them in their early days, was now fighting for life. Memories of this person rushed through her mind. The guidance, the warmth, the quiet support. Keanu placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, grounding her for a moment. He whispered softly that they should go. She nodded without hesitation. The host spoke gently into the microphone, telling the audience that the session would end early. He thanked everyone for their understanding as Keanu and Sandra left the stage quickly and quietly. People moved aside respectfully, creating a calm path for them. Some placed hands over their hearts, feeling the sudden heaviness. Some whispered prayers. Some watched with empathetic eyes as the two walked out with urgency but without panic. Outside the hall, the air felt cooler. Keanu called for a car while Sandra held her hands close together, trying to keep her emotions steady. She felt a strange mix of fear and clarity. Fear for the person who had shaped their early journeys, and clarity about how fragile time truly was. Keanu stood beside her silently, giving her the comfort of presence. The car arrived, and they both entered quietly. The drive to the hospital felt longer than it truly was. The city lights passed by in soft lines of gold, but neither of them looked outside. Keanu stared forward, thinking of every moment that mentor had shared with them. Sandra held the letter envelope in her lap without realizing it. Her fingers gently pressed against the paper as if holding on to courage. They reached the hospital and hurried inside. The hall smelled of disinfectant and quiet urgency. A nurse guided them to a waiting area near the emergency room. The lights above were bright, but the atmosphere felt heavy. Sandra sat down slowly and placed her hands on her knees. Keanu sat beside her, leaning forward with his elbows on his legs and his hands clasped. He exhaled deeply, trying to steady himself. Neither of them spoke. They did not need to. Their silence carried understanding. After a few minutes, a doctor approached them. His expression was calm but serious. He explained that their mentor had suffered a sudden medical complication, but the team was doing everything possible. He said it was a critical moment, but not hopeless. Sandra closed her eyes and breathed out slowly. Keanu nodded respectfully, thanking the doctor for his honesty. They were told to wait until the team stabilized the situation. The minutes that followed felt long and slow. Sandra leaned her head against the wall quietly. Keanu looked at her and gently moved closer. He placed his hand on top of hers. She opened her eyes and looked at him. He whispered softly that no matter what happened, they would face it together. Her eyes softened as she nodded. His kindness steadied her heart exactly the way it had years ago. Hours passed, but eventually the doctor returned with a calmer expression. He told them that the critical moment had passed. Their mentor was stable, not fully out of danger but responding better than expected. Sandra let out a long, shaky breath of relief. Keanu closed his eyes and lowered his head, whispering a quiet thank you. The doctor said they could see him for a few minutes. Both nodded and stood up. They entered the room quietly. Their mentor lay on the bed with soft beeping monitors beside him. His eyes were closed, but his breathing was steady. Sandra walked to one side of the bed and held his hand gently. Keanu stood on the other side and placed a hand on the bed railing. Neither of them spoke at first. The room felt peaceful. Sandra whispered softly that they were here, that they cared, that he was not alone. Keanu followed with gentle words of gratitude for everything their mentor had taught them. Even though the man was unconscious, they knew he could feel their presence. Sometimes presence meant more than words. After a few moments, Sandra stepped back and wiped her eyes softly. Keanu looked at her with a gentle expression. He whispered that her courage earlier that day had brought them to this moment. She shook her head quietly and said that honesty had brought them here, honesty that she feared for years, honesty she finally embraced. Keanu smiled softly. He told her that her honesty had opened something inside him too, something that had been locked away behind silence. He said he felt lighter now, he felt more grounded, he felt grateful. Sandra stepped closer and rested her forehead gently against his chest. His arms lifted and held her in a quiet embrace. There was nothing romantic, nothing dramatic. It was a moment of deep trust and shared relief, the kind of embrace that only people with years of respect could share. After a while, they walked out of the room and returned to the waiting area. Sandra sat down slowly and looked at the envelope in her hands. She opened it again slightly and looked at the letter inside. She whispered to Keanu that everything written in that letter was true, but she did not write it to receive anything. She said she wrote it because she needed him to know how strong his kindness had been in her life. Keanu sat beside her and looked at her with warm, steady eyes. He told her that her letter gave him strength too. He said that knowing he had made a difference in her life brought meaning to his own journey. He said her words reminded him that even small moments could change someone's path. He said he felt honored to be seen the way she saw him. Sandra smiled softly through tears. She told him he had always been a blessing, always, not because of grand gestures, but because of his heart, his presence, his humility. She said people like him were rare, and she felt lucky to share life moments with him. Keanu reached for her hand again. He held it gently. He told her that she had been a blessing too, not just in his life, but in the lives of many people. He said her laughter, her warmth, her resilience had lifted countless souls, including his. Her eyes softened at his words. They sat together in quiet peace. They were not the same people who walked onto that stage earlier. They had spoken truths that lived in silence for years. They had faced unexpected fear together. They had rediscovered the value of time, honesty, and presence. After some time, the nurse came and told them that their mentor would be moved to a recovery room soon. They both thanked her and stood up. Sandra looked at Keanu and whispered with a gentle smile that life truly felt different now. He nodded slowly and replied that sometimes life waited for the right moment to open hearts. They walked toward the exit side by side. The night air outside felt cool and peaceful. The stars looked brighter than before. Sandra breathed in deeply, feeling lighter inside. Keanu looked up at the sky and then at her with a soft expression. They both knew that what they shared was something rare, a bond built on kindness, respect, and honesty. As they reached the car, Sandra squeezed his hand gently and whispered the words she had said earlier on stage, but now they carried even deeper truth. She whispered that he was a blessing. Keanu looked at her with warmth in his eyes and replied softly that she was too. And in that quiet night, they understood that real connection was not about romance or expectation. It was about being there when it mattered. It was about lifting each other without noise. It was about honesty spoken at the right time. It was about gratitude shared with courage. Their story did not end there. It simply grew stronger.